This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. Today's Sem Gedalia. The Gemara says in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, and Daf Yud Amud Beis, what happened on Sem Gedalia? The Gemara says, Gimel b'Tishrei Shabai Nera Gedalia ben Achikam. On the third day of Tishrei, Gedalia ben Achikam was killed. Umi Hargai, who killed him? Yishmael ben Asanya, a Yid killed him, a Jew, Yishmael. L'lamedcha, to teach you, sheshkula misasan shel tzadikim kisreifas beis Elokeinu, that the death of the righteous is as severe as the burning of the Beis Hamikdash. So just the Gemara says three things. What happened on Sem Gedalia? Gedalia was killed on the third day of Tishrei. That's number one. Number two, who killed him? Yishmael ben Asanya. And number three, to teach you that the death of tzadikim is as severe as Sreifas Beis Elokeinu. So the Pnei Yeshua wants to know, who cares who killed him? The Gemara says Gedalia was killed, and the Gemara is saying that when a tzaddik dies, it's like the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Why does the Gemara interject and who killed him? Well, as if that has something to do with the severity of the misa of a tzaddik being Kisreifas Elokeinu. What does one thing got to do with the other? What does one thing have to do with the other? And number two, we know who killed him. It's a pasuk in the Navi. The Navi says Yishmael killed him. Why would the Gemara? The Gemara doesn't give free information. The Gemara is concise. Why just repeat over something that it says in the Navi? So it says the Pnei Yeshua. You can ask the following question: why are we fasting today? Because of the death of Gedalia. Well, wait a second. What, Gedalia is the only tzaddik that ever lived? Can you imagine the whole calendar, the 365 days a year? If not for Tzom Gedalia, I guarantee you 99% of Jews would never have heard of Gedalia. Gedalia?
But he was the last.
Who's Gedalia?
Of the governors.
Okay, the Rambam says he was the last hope the Jewish people had in their settlement after the destruction. But the Gemara doesn't say that though. The Gemara says the death of Gedalia was the tragedy. Moshe Rabbeinu died, nobody fasts. Aaron HaKohen died, nobody fasts. Avram Avinu died, most people don't even know when he died. Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, these are not tzaddikim. Why? Who's Gedalia that all of a sudden we're making a big deal about Gedalia? So you could say like this: every other tzaddik, he died naturally. For every human being, the time comes, you go back to where you came from. It's not such a terrible tragedy. But when someone is murdered and his life is cut short through man, and man has free choice, so one man has the ability to cut short the life of another man, perhaps making it that this person dies before their time. And we once discussed this, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, whether it's possible for somebody to kill someone else even if it was not decreed from heaven. Okay, that's a very deep philosophical discussion. But nevertheless, Gedalia didn't die. Gedalia was murdered. So you say, Gedalia was the only tzaddik who was murdered. Gedalia wasn't the only tzaddik who was murdered. There are many tzaddikim who was murdered. The answer is the other tzaddikim who were murdered. They were murdered through Goyim. So they're through Goyim. What do you expect? But Gedalia was murdered by a Yid. That you don't have a tragedy like that. He didn't die naturally. He was murdered, and he was murdered by a Jew. You'll ask, there were other tzaddikim who were murdered by other tzaddikim. For example, Yeshaya HaNavi was murdered by his own grandson, Menashe. Then at least the Beis Hamikdash was standing. But here, the Beis Hamikdash is gone, and it's, so to speak, the world has been given over to the Koichos Hara. That's the tragedy of. So here's the thing. Normally when a tzaddik dies, it brings kapara to the world, yeah? But not if one Yid kills another Yid. You think if a Jew kills a Jew, the death of the tzaddik is mechaper? It's not mechaper, it's mekatrig. It's a kitrug. So that's how tragic Tzom Gedalia is. Because here you have a tzaddik. He didn't die, he was killed. He was killed by another Yid, and we didn't get anything out of it. It's not like it's mechaper for us. And that's why the Gemara concludes, normally when a tzaddik dies, it's mechaper. But when Gedalia dies, Nebuch, unfortunately, lo yaleinu, not only was it not a kapara for Klal Yisrael, it was a kitrug on Klal Yisrael. Okay, let me just end off with one brief thought. We're now holding an Asar Simei Tshuva. Seres Yemei Tshuva, it's the beginning of the year. Every day sets the tone for the rest of the year. It's the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We're trying to do tshuva for our chatam, for our averos. This is a well-known period of the year. Aseres Yemei Tshuva. There's another period of the year which would seem to have absolutely nothing to do with the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, and that is Churban Beis Hamikdash. You have Dalet Hanesim. You have Asar B'Teves, that's when the walls of Yerushalayim were surrounded. You have Shavas B'Tammuz, that's when the walls were breached. You have Tisha B'Av, that's when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And then Tzom Gedalia. Gedalia was the last remnant of Jews remaining in Yerushalayim, and when he was killed, the Rambam says the last ember, the last coal extinguished. It would seem that Tzom Gedalia is just coincidentally coming out in the middle of Aseres Yemei Tshuva. Here, the Dalet Hanesim is mourning Churban Beis Hamikdash. Aseres Yemei Tshuva is, we're trying to do tshuva for our chatam, we're trying to set the tone for the rest of the year. These seem to be two separate periods on the calendar, and somehow, coincidentally, Tzom Gedalia comes out in the middle of Aseres Yemei Tshuva. It would almost seem like there's no connection at all between Tzom Gedalia, which is the end of Asar B'Teves, Shavas B'Tammuz, Tisha B'Av, and Tzom Gedalia. It would seem that that period of time is not really deeply related to the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. But obviously, the fact that we're fasting Tzom Gedalia right the day after Rosh Hashanah. By the way, you know, Beis Yosef brings down Gedalia was not killed today. Gedalia was killed on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, but we had to push it off because you can't fast on Rosh Hashanah. And the Taz even brings down, according to this, every Tzom Gedalia has a din of a nidcha. This year, it's definitely a nidcha because it came out on Hashanah. But in fact, even though, let's say, a woman who's a Yoledes or a Meinekes, a woman who's nursing or pregnant, if she's able to fast, she could try to fast on a tainus. But on Tzom Gedalia, the Poskim are more mekel because the Matei Ephraim brings down every Tzom Gedalia has a din of a nidcha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.